Mayor Coolidge, the first thing I think that we should address here is where are we at in the process of coming to some sort of compromise when it comes to finding a shelter solution here?
And I think really the community wants to know that. Where are we in the trial process? Where are we in terms of actually this getting some resolution? Because I think we all want to move forward, and I'm among those folks. So, if you look at it right now, today actually they'll be submitting briefs to the magistrate in terms of a settlement conference. That'll be proceeding on the 30th, so there will actually be a settlement conference with the magistrate at that time. Hopefully the parties will be close enough that there can actually be some resolution, but that's really the issue we're dealing with. The two parties coming together. I believe the other side kind of wants the moon, and we're really just trying to deal with providing a solution that'll work within the city's budget, that'll end this so we can get back to enforcing in the parks and waterways. So it's complicated.
Okay, so I know that one of the things that the judge had brought up was that at this airport shelter site, we're not seeing beds, we're not seeing a roof, we're not seeing walls, air conditioning, all of these things that might entail what a shelter is. Is there a plan in the works to make that site more of a shelter, or is there some other sort of solution that you're cooking up?
Sure, and a lot of people like to, talk about the airport site and say, a lot of things were missing, but at the same token, a lot of things weren't in place yet. So we actually had an RFP, a request for proposal out for that site to have an organization management. And to have the management manage it in a way that actually would provide some of those things. But of course, because the county backed out of that site and we had other difficulties with that site, some of that never came to fruition. So right now you have the site out there, it has the spaces. We are actually providing additional shelter over the tents. But that site, even though a lot of people have really just said it's not a great location, it's not a great facility, it has now, I think, about 29 people out there staying. So it's grown on its own. Whether the city continues to do it, because we have gotten some pushback on it, because the judge did not like it, that's something that we're going to have to look at and see whether or not we tailor that back and go to something else. And I think that's really where the settlement conference comes into play.
Okay, it feels like this all seems so far down the line now. I know that everybody, they want some sort of solution, some sort of compromise reached, and we're still not even sure if we're going to try to make that work or go a completely different direction at this point.
Well, certainly the city has an idea of what we can do. There are some sites being considered, some sites being offered. We really want to put that together. We want to make this problem a problem of the past. We want to move forward. Whether the plaintiffs are on board for that, some folks would say that they're just trying to delay, trying to keep this process going as long as possible because it works in their favor. The city's, of course, pushing for the judge to make, a decision quicker, to get to settlement sooner. So we've offered some pretty big things that I never thought we would put on the table. And the response we're getting is still just not even.
Can you tell me what some of those things are?
So, well, I can't tell you specifically what they are, but I can say we've looked at doing sites that, are more conducive to, like Comanche Creek. Sites that are more similar to it, I should say. So sites that have some shading, that have some trees, that would have better access to water. So we put in some pretty hefty items on the table in terms of the council, but I don't see us ever moving personally to, an indoor shelter facility, because that would be really difficult. It would be difficult for the entire 9th District to actually comply with that. You're talking about San Francisco and LA. If they had to do something like that, even those cities would be on the brink of bankruptcy. So to require cities to provide indoor housing facilities when some of our citizens don't have that, to provide air conditioning when our citizens don't have that, I don't think that's a realistic outcome. I don't think the judge is going to burden the city with that, and every city in the 9th District with that.
One thing a lot of people want to know, while we're tied up, while the city can't do anything in terms of enforcing park rules, what are the key public safety issues that you're worried about?
And those are some of the things that we're actually having conversations and addressing. So you'll start to see some movement on those issues. So, when it comes to the extreme drug use, when it comes to the fires, when it obviously comes to anything of a criminal activity, that's something that we're looking at and working on to stop that kind of activity. So we are rolling out kind of a program to do that. We know and realize that some of these areas are high crime areas as well. So there's a lot of folks who in the community are pushing for enforcement in that area. So, but according to, the city attorney and how we move forward, it has to be really done in a way that isn't targeted. We don't want to target that community or seem to be targeting that community. So for example, we couldn't go in there and go, you know what, we're going to fine everybody for smoking today inside them.
Right. So
we really have to look at doing something more, complete and inclusive in terms of the entire city and just enforcing the laws on the books.
Well, everything remains in limbo right now. That airport resting site is costing the city about $35,000 each month. Now, I also reached out to Legal Services of Northern California. That's the plaintiff's representation. And I am still waiting to hear more on their take about their efforts to reach some sort of compromise.
Well, Haley, when do we find out what the magistrate and judge think about those proposals, though?
It's hard to say exactly when we'll see them come to a final solution, but we do know that they will be back there to discuss their options ahead of them on August 30th.